I would call it a sin, okay, to push somebody to be stricter than they feel comfortable with, because that will then cause a rebound for the other guys that then say, look, I was carnivore for a full year or 2 years, and now I would like to add fruit. Okay, maybe just psychologically they would prefer to do that, and that's okay. They should not pitch then, in my opinion, as you said, that is optimal. Yeah, they should just say, look, I'm not recommending everyone should do this, but for me, 95% carnivore with a 5% flexibility fits me. And if it's pitched that
Exactly.
way,
Yeah. It's the
then
framing. It's the
it
way
should
that it's
be.
framed. It's
Exactly.
if because there's
Exactly.
certain people that they add in, some of that sugar and carbs, and they shift their framing to say, "Oh, this is optimal now," just to sort of make themselves feel better for caving into their
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah.
And that's when
Yeah.
it really gets annoying. And when I speak up, hello, friends. Good evening if you're in my time zone, and good morning if you're in my today's guest Ali's time zone over in China. We have a wonderful carnivore healing story for you today. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the full thing myself because so far I've just been following along on Instagram with this gentleman. So, Ali, thank you so much for coming to join me today, sir.
Hi, Ben. No problem. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, you were giving me a brief overview before we hit the record button of your story from where it started and how you got to where you are now, just being a big advocate for eating lots of meat. So, why don't you give us a bit of background and no need to keep it short. We love long stories. So, give us the whole spiel from where you started and how you got here.
Yeah, sure thing. No problem at all. So for me, my name's Ali. I'm currently living in China. I'm originally from the UK. I should say that I'm 40 years old now, sadly, um,
You
as
do
of this
not look
year.
like it. I'm really
Well,
impressed with that, man. You're doing
thank you.
well.
Thank you. So yeah, for me, carnivore now. I've been carnivore for 105 days yesterday, and the reason why I went carnivore was actually for medical reasons. So it wasn't a fat loss thing or anything like that. It was purely for medical reasons. And the background is that probably from my early 30s, I started with various symptoms that I didn't realize was anything significant. You just kind of put it down to certain things, and maybe getting older, and then over time those symptoms got worse. And the big ones for me were I started to get cold fingers, and that you think, well, that's nothing major, a little bit of a cold fingers, but it got to the point where, like with my kids, if I would pick my son out of the bath, he would flinch because my hands were that cold, even if it was like reasonably warm outside. And then, so that was kind of like one set of symptoms, fingers and toes being really cold. And then another set of symptoms that I had was really, really bad um, digestive issues. So I'd wake up in the middle of the night with really bad pains in my abdomen. Um, I had some hormone issues as well. And the last kind of bracket of issues that I had in terms of symptoms um, was I would have night sweats every night. So probably for the last 5 years, I've probably had I've woke up at some point in the night with really like almost like you're having a really bad night terror, nightmare, sweating kind of thing. Um, and again, I didn't really associate them all together, but I went to see a doctor, and the doctor referred me to a consultant, and then the consultant referred me to a specialist. And long story short, I ended up with kind of like one of the leading specialists in the UK in rheumatoid arthritis based autoimmune diseases. Um, uh, I tend not to use the word disease because I prefer to. It doesn't feel comfortable. So if somebody says to me, "What's your issue?" I sort of say, "I've got an autoimmune condition or an autoimmune thing. Um,
I completely agree with that. I think disease is the wrong word there. We can talk about that more later.
sure,
quick
yeah,
quick
absolutely.
question. I can't remember, you said joint pain was also a part of this, and that's where the rheumatoid arthritis came in, because that's a
Yeah,
joint issue, right? Okay.
that's a good point. Yeah, so with my joints, it wasn't so much pain. Well, I had pain in my hips, um, and the rest of my joints, particularly knees and fingers, would the only way to describe it is that my joints felt spongy. So it felt like if the joint had fluid in it, that it would be like a thick fluid, quite a viscous fluid. Um, so that was something else. But again, it's like it's not quite painful enough for you to think I'm going to go to the doctors about it, but it was just making life uncomfortable.
Just
I
kind of
ended up with
gunked
this.
up. It just felt like there were just a bunch of things clogged in there, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
literally. So I ended up with this specialist who said they think it's rheumatoid arthritis based, but not quite because it's like a puzzle and there's pieces of the puzzle that fit and pieces of the puzzle that don't fit. So they then asked me if I would take part in a medical study and sign some papers to say that any results that they got from testing me, they could publish. And don't mind that. So I said, yes, sure thing. If you, as long as I get a copy of whatever you publish, I'm happy, kind of thing. And then I moved to China, trying to keep this quite concise. I moved to China for work and ended up having to do this medical interaction remotely. Um, and then I started to certain symptoms I've learned how to manage because the doctors told me I would get flare ups and flare downs over time, and they gave me certain medications to take, which I don't like taking medication if I'm honest. It's like if I don't ever get headaches as a growing up, but let's say I was somebody who did, I would not be the sort of person that would take a painkiller because I'd rather know when the headache's fixed itself rather than mask the issue. So um, but that being said, I ended up in a situation where they did various scans in terms of checking for brain tumors, checking for abdomen tumors and growths. There were some growths found in my abdomen, in my intestines and stomach that had to be removed around about 5 years ago. That was done. And then more recently, let's say 120 days ago, I was told that I would possibly need surgery on my intestine. But before that, we pulled the trigger and did that. What we could try might be an elimination diet to try and see if that helped. So I said, well, I'd much rather try a diet change than go through surgery. And I'm certainly not going to have surgery in China. Let's be let's be honest about that. So I
Having big
said
medical conditions in a foreign country is just like a nightmare situation. You
it's
never want
scary.
to do
It's
that.
scary. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, Ben, and I don't want to offend any Chinese listeners that are listening, but when you come to China to get your resident permit, you need to go to a medical doctor and get checked out. And if I said to you, picture a medical facility from the 1960s that if you took photographs in a clever way, you could say this was a asylum for forgetting people. That was my experience. And I moved out to China in the middle of COVID as well, in the big COVID lockdown measures in China. So I absolutely was not going to go into the Chinese medical system. So tried the carnivore or elimination diet. I didn't think I'm going to be a carnivore. I just was told, let's try elimination. Okay, what do we do? Meat and eggs. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, what else? No, meat and eggs to start with. And then we'll do that for a month. And then after the first month, we'll try certain foods to add them back in. And we can try drinks as well. I'm a big, or have been in the past, a very huge coffee and tea drinker. And it turns out actually that tea has a big impact on me, a really big impact. Um, and then,
Oxalates, probably, right?
yeah, I imagine so. I imagine so. So then, keeping the story still quite manageable in terms of length. Started on what is now, Carnivore, as we're calling it, and within like 3 days, started to feel really, really good. And I've got it on my Instagram page, like a list of day by day when things changed. And the biggest one for me, actually, aside from, because if I describe the symptoms, if you say joint pain, abdominal pains waking you up at the night, fingers and toes being painfully cold to the point where you can't even type, these things, they sound like they're the worst symptoms. And in one way they are, but in fact, the thing that has changed my life the most is my sleep improvement. The sleep now, I mean, having woken up every night for like 5 years, covered in sweat, and waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning and having to change the bed and having disrupted sleep, going from that to now I lie down and have extremely deep sleep all the way to waking up totally refreshed and no sweat at all, is just life changing. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. So when that happened, I was like, it's like magic, right? This what's going on? So then had decided to catalog it on Instagram and just to sort of like, see what happened. And it's gone really, really well. And all of the symptoms, I would now say that I'm 99% free of symptoms. Sometimes, like this week, I had an afternoon where I felt a little bit of, it's hard to describe, but when I would have a flare up in the past, I'd notice a slight energy dip and my joints feeling a little bit. I would say I felt like the very first starting elements of that, but it's like 1% compared to what it used to be. So
Huge
right
improvement,
now,
basically.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and right now I'm literally just on beef, salt, butter. I have 1 ounce of butter a day. On top of the beef is like a little bit of a condiment, and water, and that's it. I will be adding coffee back in. I've said this on my Instagram page because it turns out that I can drink coffee and manage it. It doesn't have that big of effect. So the way I would describe it is, if I'm 99% good without coffee, I'm probably 96%, 95% if I add coffee back in. But the difference is that with my job, which involves a lot of travel and a lot of visiting of customers and different offices around the world, if you say to somebody, sorry, I can't eat anything at dinner because we're going to a Chinese restaurant and there's no pure meat, because even if you ask in a Chinese restaurant, please, can I have just meat? It comes with sauces and, garnishes or seasonings on that I don't want to risk. So it's one thing to say I'm not going to eat, but then if somebody says, well, okay, if we're not going to go for dinner, let's at least go for a coffee meeting. If you then say, well, I can't even do coffee, that for me is a kind of a bridge too far socially, let's say. So I'm happy to accept that 2 or 3% drop for the social freedom that having the coffee gives me, let's say. So, and that's kind of like, so in terms of carnivore, that would be my kind of like background. And then for anybody listening who knows my Instagram account, the other element that I added in was about weight loss and fitness, because it's a big part of my life. And I used to be quite big, not huge, but I would say I think at my peak weight I was like 253, 255 pounds, something like that. And that then I yo-yo dieted from being maybe late teens. So I used to be big as a teen, then I dropped a load of weight, and then after that, yo-yoed up, yo-yoed down, and then yo-yoed really far up in my late 20s, early 30s. And then my daughter was born, and I thought I need to be healthy for her, because I want to be old and grey playing with her kids and not in ill health. So then I started to get into fitness and health, and have since then have kind of, in my spare time, I do a lot of research and a lot of reading on nutrition, dieting, fitness, exercise, this kind of thing, and have done that. And then, if I may, Ben, what I would say is that for a couple of people in my social circle, so there's like maybe 3 or 4 people at work and maybe 2 or 3 people socially, they've sort of said that they would see me posting on my personal Instagram account, you're at the gym 5 days a week, or you're posting a fitness, you're doing a run the next day, and you've inspired me to kind of get into it. Can you give me advice? So I started to give these people some advice on what I've done. And that then turned into kind of like semi-mentoring. I don't want to use the word coaching exactly. When people have asked me, am I a coach? I always say, no, I'm not a coach. I don't do a business separately. I sort of just do, let's say, free of charge kind of mentoring for certain people that I connect with, and guide them. And that then led me to think, well, if I can do that for a couple of people, two of the guys actually at work were really big, and we're talking like 350 pounds, kind of size. And those guys have completely changed their lives. And when I started to get messages from them to say, thank you so much for all the help that you've given me. I'm a different person. I thought, maybe if I add that to the Instagram page, if I can help people who've come across it and that inspires somebody, then, no harm in sharing it. So that's literally what my thing on social media is all about.
And you lost like around or over 100 pounds, right?
Yes. So, excuse me one sec.
No worries. That's no small
Yeah.
feat,
So,
man. That's pretty freaking awesome.
yeah. So what I did was I did it the wrong way, actually, I would say. I really, really aggressively cut weight to begin with. So from my 255, let's call it, I went on a really, really extreme diet, and a lot of cardio. So I lost a lot of weight, but didn't retain a lot of muscle mass either at that point, obviously, either. So ended up dropping down to 190, 180 pounds at first, but didn't look particularly fit. I looked okay. Like if most people that you might look at me in my clothes would say, you look fine. But I wasn't happy with it. And that's when and that took me maybe just under a year to drop quite a lot of weight. And then since then have refined it, let's say, and built some muscle and lost fat. And so I have lost a lot. Actually, now I would say that I've lost too much versus what I would like. So what happened, if I can, this might be something that not many people on Carnivore say. I don't think it's many people experience either, but I've lost too much weight on doing Carnivore. So what happened was, when I was doing an if it fits your macros, calories in, calories out mentality, okay, if you talk about just calories, then I would be, let's say a year ago, I would be eating maybe 2,600 calories a day, and that would be kind of like maintenance for me. And what I did was, when I went I had gone through a mass gaining phase over Christmas, just 2023 Christmas and winter, started to put on weight and got up to about 185 pounds, something like that, and then thought, right, I want to trim a little bit of fat, tone up. So started dropping weight, and it was in the middle of that I went onto the carnivore diet effectively, and the weight loss continued. But then once I got to the level that I wanted to be, which was about 165, 160 pounds, I was then at the point where I thought, right, I want to sit here for a few weeks and then start building muscle again, because I want to build muscle. And the weight kept dropping. So then I started to add, but I was on carnivore, eating around about, in terms of macros, about the same level, let's say 2,600 calories a day, as best as I could estimate. Yeah. So I started to add food, weight kept dropping. Started to add more meat, weight kept dropping. So now I'm eating, if you were to plug what I eat a day, which, yesterday I had 6 ribeyes, which were 11 ounces each. sorry, 3 ribeyes, 11 ounces each, and 3 strip steaks that were 9 ounces each. So it's quite a lot of meat, fatty meat, and butter. I'm probably eating, if you want to think calories, I'm probably eating about 4,000 calories a day. And now my weight is still stabilized. So I basically, because what I didn't want to do was say, oh, I'm losing weight too fast, just pig out and gorge, because I've got a tendency to overeat in the past. That's why I got so big. So I didn't want to go down the route of saying, just eat as much as you like and non-stop, because if I do that, I'm likely to just pig out. So I've been adding food for the last 6 weeks. I've been adding food, or like certainly for the last 4 weeks, I've been adding food every week where I think, okay, tracking my weight. Oh, I've dropped another pound. Right, I need to add another steak, or add another 3 ounces of steak or something, whatever. Add some more, fats. And have now hit the point where it looks like if I sit at about 4,000 calories ish, or this amount of fatty meat, it seems to stabilize. So now I'm in a situation where I think, okay, I did a trip back to the UK a few weeks ago. I've just done a week's travel. Now I'm back home in where I live in China. I can now start to say, okay, I can add a bit more food to try and put on muscle now. So I don't think many people would say they lost more weight than they planned on carnivore, although I have heard some people say that. Dr. Anthony Chaffee even said that a little bit at times. But yeah, for me, I lost even too much. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've never counted a calorie in my life, so I can't
No?
provide any good insight on that side of things. But I love how you're just experimenting and tracking everything as you do. And like we mentioned earlier, you have an Instagram page where you're posting everything as you go. And I think that the more people can do that and just use that as a location where they share their journey and they're learning with people, I think that's awesome. It's this new decentralized form of learning that everyone can experience together, and mixing in with all the more informational content that you post is awesome. So I think that's super cool.
That's the thing. That's one thing that I would just jump in there and say that actually that was a big surprise for me. That's one thing that I try to post and sit and be thankful about it, is that I started to post, and I don't think that I'm particularly like interesting, or I mean, the story is quite interesting. If you say to somebody, I only eat meat and it's fixed all my health issues, people say, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, so that bit is interesting, but I don't think that I'm a particularly interesting content poster, let's say. But that being said, when I have posted content, the reception that I've had was way more positive and way more kind of supportive and requesting deeper info than I expected. And that kind of then motivated me to carry on and to say, okay, well, if people find it interesting, if I say, here's the end of week 2 or the end of week 3, this is what I've experienced this week. Okay, great. I'll just do it. It takes me 2 minutes to tell a story like that. And if it helps people, then it helps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got some bullet points here I jotted down in my notes just as you're telling your story. The first one is something that I circled where you said that you lost weight the wrong way. I think this is a good thing to really highlight for people, because I know there are a lot of people out there who just want to shed the extra pounds, and they could be like you or like me. I also was just like a little chubby. I was probably
Yeah.
like 210 or something at my heaviest at
Okay.
6'1", so I wasn't really that big, but just a little soft, like
Yeah.
not optimal. And but when I see people that are, heavy and really trying to lose weight, and I see them at the gym now, like you said, just doing cardio for hours, it just makes my heart break, because I know that this is not the way to do it, like you said. And so I want to hear if you agree with me or not. My basic my message to the people who are just trying to lose weight is that um just working out more is not a good way to lose weight. Just like exercising harder is typically not, because it's hard on your joints. It makes you more hungry. It like increases your hunger signal, so you end up eating more, and it's just not effective from what I've heard from people who have lost a bunch of weight. Going on a carnivore diet is the way that you hit your satiation really quickly so you stop eating, and then your body will naturally melt away that extra fat. And that's, I've heard so many stories of this happening. That the crown jewel is Limitless Lindy from Australia. I'm not sure if you've heard of her or followed her story, but she lost 500 pounds from doing
Yeah,
this, and she did
yeah,
zero exercise.
yeah.
Zero. She weighed 800 pounds, and all she did change was just eating tons of meat every day. She just cut out all the plants, all the fruits, all the vegetables, and literally just continued sitting on the couch, but just eating steak, and the weight just started melting off. So
It's
exercise isn't even
insane.
an essential part of that equation. I would say that's a bonus if you want to build muscle after you've become more fit, because you're naturally going to want to move more as your body gets healthier. It's like a natural instinct. We want to get out there and move. But I don't think it's good advice to tell people to, like, just go exercise even when you're severely overweight and struggling and don't feel good, because that's a good way to sort of just put a negative energy around exercise. Like when you see people there, they're just like struggling on a treadmill, like they really don't want to be there. I think that they first need to fix the diet. And we always hear that exercise and weight loss is 80% diet or whatever number they use. I think it's like 99% diet. I think it really is. The first step is to fix your diet, go on carnivore, so your body will start healing and shedding those excess pounds naturally. And once you feel better, then of course it's great to implement exercise as well. Is that roughly what you would say to those people as well, or would you have a modification there?
I would modify it slightly. So I think in essence, you're right, and it depends on the circumstances. I think if somebody's, like you say, severely overweight, yes, their priority. I mean, I would agree that the priority is to fix the eating side of things. Okay, that's let's say the first thing. I would, for somebody who's extreme, like if somebody's got 500 pounds to lose, that person should not start by going to the gym. Yeah, the impact of that exercise on their joints and their system would be so extreme that it would probably make them less healthy than they are right now. I think that if you're somebody that was in my situation, let's say from your situation as you described, similar to me, 6'1" ish, a little bit over, but 250 pounds, 255, or in that kind of ballpark, I think that exercise is a good idea, not to do weight loss, not that that's the driver of the weight loss, but to be healthy, okay, for heart health and also for mobility and joint health. But when I said I
And
did it the
mental
wrong,
health too. We haven't really mentioned
yes,
mental health, but it's
exactly,
great
mental health
for
is
your,
huge.
yeah.
I wish I could show you. In fact, I can't show you here because it's on the back of my screen. Um, but it's a post. It's actually a
So
post
you
that
have
I'm going to
three
do.
mirrors that you can put very strategically around you now.
I was thinking about that. However, what I don't, but what I do have is a copy of it on the back of my. This is my actual work laptop. On the back of my work laptop, I have a sticker of
Ah, there
mental
we
health
go.
matters. Mental
Love
health
it.
matters. Um, yeah. So for me, mental health is a big, big, big thing. Um, not that I've had particular mental health issues. I just have seen it in other people and feel that it's something that I empathise and I'm a mental health trained person in my professional life as well. Um, so going back to the fitness and weight loss thing, when I said I did it the wrong way, you're right. So what I did was drop food way too low. So again, if you are talking calories, less than 1,800 calories a day for a 6'1", 255-pound man who's doing an hour of cardio a day, 5 days a week, and crash dieted. The only the it's a positive for me in many ways, but in the negative there is that my willpower is extremely strong generally. So if I say that's what I'm going to do, I do it. So I'm not the sort of person who will um, start doing that and then lose the momentum. But what I've recommended with a lot of people, because I've seen it happen, is so if I talk about one colleague that I've got at work who's a big inspiration for me, and I say inspiration in the fact that I've helped him change his life, let's say, and um, it brings almost tears to me to see how he is now compared to how he was. He's fantastic, this guy. With him, I had a sit down talk with him where he lives. He lives in India actually, and I had a sit down chat with him, and I gave him the same advice that I've given to some other people, which is, look, you need to make changes, diet, but don't go to the gym and don't go at 100% of what you can do straight away. It's not sustainable. So you see these people do like these 12-week challenges or 10-week fat loss challenge, this sort of thing. And it's not sustainable for two reasons. One is that they have to perform a level of fitness or a level of activity that doesn't fit with their lifestyle. But you can do that short term. So you can say, okay, like I'm going to get up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. every morning and do 2 hours cardio for 12 weeks or 6 weeks challenge. But then when the challenge is over, it's not sustainable because you've not got that as part of your life. So that's element number one. And then element number two is you try too much too fast. And as you say, it turns the gym into this, or whatever your fitness sport of choice is, into this negative, I have to do it because it's the burden that I have to carry to lose weight. So what I say to people is the right way is, look, start slow, just commit to, even if it's once a week or twice a week. Most people, if you say to somebody, if you've got a sport that you like, or if you enjoy the gym, can you go to the gym twice a week? Well, if you say once at a weekend and maybe one time during the week, most people can probably say, yeah, I can do that. Some people can't because their lifestyle is so busy, but most people can. So you say, okay, start with that and just say, that's what I'm going to do now because I enjoy it forever. I'm just going to do that because I want to enjoy myself and I can manage a couple of times a week. And if you're like me, what I then did after I did it the wrong way by doing loads of cardio and then I sort of realized where I'd gone wrong, what I did was I was doing full body resistance training workout because I enjoyed it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then that then snowballed into, it's the weekend and I've got some spare hours. I'd like to go back to the gym. Okay. So I now do 4 times a week. And then that went to 5 times a week. And now and then that went to 6. And then I found that recovery was a bit of a problem. So then I dialed it back. So now I do heavy resistance training, heavy by my standards. So it's intense for me. 5 times a week. And maybe on a 6th day, I'll do a small jog if I like running. So if I'll do maybe a small jog, and then on one day I do literally 0 exercise. I try to keep my steps about 14,000 a day, but I enjoy it and it's sustainable. And that's what I say is in my opinion, is the right way. Something that you enjoy, so you're not going to have to force yourself to do it too much, and something that is sustainable in terms of it fits with your lifestyle. And I would actually say, if I can, and this is where a lot of people, carnivore community, might disagree with me, but I've got a few posts on my Instagram that focus around like don't or ditch. I think I said ditch the dogma. Okay, and that is to say, look, if you look at my diet right now, is it a carnivore? By most people who say they're carnivore, I'm more strict than them. I don't have dairy. I don't do like cottage cheese and this sort of stuff. If you say carnivore, there's quite a lot of room for maneuver in there. I have beef, salt, with an ounce of butter every day. That's my thing. It's not as strict as lion because there's butter in there, but it's like lion plus. Yeah. And that's where I enjoy it and it seems to fit fine. And that's just for me. This week I've been traveling and eating eggs as well because I had to. And I noticed my digestion was a bit off, but I was also eating a lot of jerky. So I'm going to remove the eggs for a few days and see how it goes. And then maybe now that I'm back on proper steaks, not jerky, I will add some eggs back in again and see how I feel. But what I would say about diet-wise is don't think I'm a carnivore and this is allowed and that's not allowed. I'm not allowed coffee on carnivore. If you're optimal diet, and I mean optimal, like I said, with me, if I can feel 100% eating just beef, salt, and butter, but then coffee drops me to 95, but gives me 80% more freedom socially, that's the balance I'm happy with. And that's why I think that people need to try and strive and not be dogmatic and say carnivore diet only allows this and you're not allowed to eat that. And if you eat honey, then you're not carnivore. And Paul Saladino's this and he's a betrayer of the clan and all this sort of stuff. Listen, if you find that eating carnivore diet or a strict lion diet 6 days a week and then on a Sunday you have a little bit of fruit is your mental health balance, work life, social life balance where you need to be, then that's the optimum for you, right? That's my opinion on it. And I know I sort of went into a bit of a soapbox rant there, but I really find it frustrating that people will say, you drink coffee, so you're not carnivore. You know, come on. There's no hard rules to this. Yeah. I know
I mean,
people say
I think it's really
people
good to
wouldn't.
talk about this stuff
Yeah.
because, I mean,
Sorry.
sorry, did you have something else you want to say there?
I was just going to say that the argument that a lot of people use is our ancestors wouldn't have had access to these fruits and that fruits. At the end of the day, we assume certain things. Yeah, we know our ancestors had a meat based diet. That's pretty well established. But if they were hunting a mammoth and they saw, I mean, people were going to say that's not physically possible due to geographic spread. But if in a hypothetical world I was hunting a mammoth 10,000 years ago and I saw an apple tree, would I take a bite out of the apple tree of an apple? Maybe I would. I don't
It
know.
wouldn't look
Maybe
anything
they
like the
did.
apples we see today, though.
No,
Keep that
that's
in
true.
mind. It
But
would be like a
yeah,
tiny little green poisonous thing. It's completely
maybe I
been
don't.
hybridized. So
True,
that's something I would throw out.
true.
And this is one of the things I talk about with the fruit people because uh, I love talking about this, just like the dogma conversation. Like, are the strict carnivores just being too mean? They need to be more flexible and let people eat whatever they want. Where I stand on it, and I talked about this when I went on Dave Mack's show recently, was that the thing that I'm very strict on, and I will hold the line on forever, is just that people know what peak optimal is, and then they can do whatever they want after that. Like as long,
Yeah,
I think that just
yeah.
having the knowledge there, and the way that you put it, I think is perfect. You know that coffee is bringing you down a little bit, but you get a huge social benefit from it. That's totally cool. I've I've experimented with coffee a little bit myself, and I would say, without a doubt, it is health wise a net negative. It's not a big one, but it is a net negative. I have this weird thing when I drink it where I feel just a little bit of tightness in these two fingers, which is quite odd. I've been told that's the ulnar nerve is what it's called. There's like a little
Oh
bit
no,
of like
nerve.
inflammation, like in my
Okay.
cubital tunnel syndrome. I think that's what it's called. Super
Yeah.
weird, random thing. I just it was like a couple years ago. I just slept funny on my arm, and my hand was just all tingly. And there's like a tiny bit of that that just never completely goes away, and it comes back when I drink coffee. So super random.
Okay.
My sleep certainly doesn't get any better. It only gets a little bit worse, especially if I drink it later in the day.
Yeah.
Digestion, I mean, literally, like you can just tell, like if you start pooping more and it's less solid, that's not a good thing for your digestion. And
No.
that
No.
definitely happens a little bit more when I'm drinking coffee. And I mean, it's just a ground up plant juice at the end of the day. It's if
Yeah.
you really believe that plants aren't meant for human consumption, like Dr. Anthony Chaffee says, I'm with him on that. Yeah, I just think that people who believe, oh, coffee is fine on or coffee is carnivore, I think that that's not true. But if you get benefit from it, like you
No.
said, I understand some people for the energy side of it. That is, I mean, that's worth talking about because when you drink it, you do get a boost in energy for a short while. The way that I see it is that you're stealing some energy from the future. So if you have something really important going on in this exact moment, and you don't care that you're going to have a little digestive issues or a little bit worse sleep or less energetic day tomorrow, I mean, that's for everyone to decide, and like you said, it's really up to the person what benefits they get from what. But Yeah, now I'm on a soapbox ranting, but I think that's basically. I just think that the lion diet, and you also mentioned eggs. That's another one I wanted to mention, and that is, I don't know about common, but there are definitely some people who have eggs issues. If they have
Yeah,
eggs, they drop a little bit down from that optimal level, and that's why I always try to recommend when you're doing your 90-day full clear out elimination, like you talked about, I think lion diet is the way to go. Just fatty red meat, salt, and water. And then after that, that's when you can start adding things in and see what happens. You can throw some
yeah,
eggs in there, throw some dairy in there if you want, throw some coffee if you want. Any of these things, and you'll get a clear picture of what happens to your body. And
yeah,
once you're starting from that baseline, you get a much easier, and keep a journal, like you said. It's really cool that you do that, because I do the same thing. I have a little notepad. Whenever I would experiment with things, I just write it down, and you learn so much about your body this way. And one of the big ones for me was fruit, because for a long time I was in that meat, fruit, and honey Paul Saladino camp, like you mentioned him, and so I was just, well, let's see what happens if I take that out. I did, strict line diet for a while, and then I brought fruit back in, and it brought me down a little bit. It changed, it whacked out my satiety signals a little bit, so I was not hungry when I should have been, and it made me crave more. The
yeah,
sugar really, made me just the next day I was craving sugar more. And I was like, oh, that's what an addiction is when you start
yeah,
slipping down that slope and you just want it more if you have a little bit. And I didn't eat like a ton of it to the point of where I gained weight off of it, but when I did dairy, I've actually done a little bit of dairy experimentation on my current trip back home at my family's house here in where I'm at in Washington State, and I
okay,
got raw milk at the the local shop. It's high quality raw milk straight from the farm. It still makes me just less optimal. It a little bit of digestive weirdness. I
yeah,
got, you can't quite see it on the video here, it's going away, but I had a little zit that popped up on my forehead, and I feel like I pretty much I never get any acne when I'm strict. But it's like the skin is perfect for me, and
yeah,
I only have little issues pop up when I deviate a little bit. And milk has galactose in it, and as we've
hmm,
learned, anything that ends with ose is a sugar, so there's a little bit of sugar in there. So that could be it. And also just a little bit of puffiness around my face. That's one of the first things for me that changes is my face. I can see
okay,
it in my face. Like I get a little bit like a little softer around the edges, and I can even see it just right now looking at it. Like compared to some of the pictures I took when I was really strict, I had like a pretty good jawline for the first time ever. Like I've always
yeah,
had a baby face, so for me that's another thing. And especially when you're just chewing more steak, you're moving that jaw, you're working the
yeah,
jaw. That's so. I
yeah,
mean, just a lot of experimentation done for both of us, and I hope that people listening to this can just be inspired to really journal and just feel empowered to try these things yourself and see what happens, because you and I probably have different experiences with different foods, and there is some bio individuality there. I know I personally believe that word bio individuality is overused. I think that humans have a lot more in common than we have different, but of course there's going to be some differences from person to person.
yeah, and there's certainly going to be differences in terms of what different people can tolerate. But just as there's a lot of differences when it comes to um, the ailments or illnesses that people have. Yeah, different people have different things that they want to fix with this. Um, a lot of people come to it, right, they seem to be coming to it for a fat loss, weight loss side of things, because they hear, what, I can eat bacon, burgers, and steak as much as I like, and I'll lose weight. Um, so that's attractive to people. But then from the health, the non obese, let's say, or weight loss health side of things, um, there's the mental health side. There's a wide variety of mental health conditions and issues that people can address. And then there's the physical health, whether it's, Crohn's disease or irritable bowel or anything like this, or autoimmune stuff. Then different people have different conditions. So different, let's say, remedies might be necessary, or different levels of strictness. But for me, it's just more what I see is I see some people on social media, and in particular on this is not really connected with carnivore, but it is connected with mental health for me. I see a lot of young people on social media getting completely hammered with negativity because they sort of have posted, I'm going to try out a carnivore diet, and but now I'm going to add some honey in, or I'm going to add this and I'm going to add that, and the amount of hate that they get is phenomenal. And I sort of look at it and think, why is come on. I mean, what difference does it make to you if somebody has meat and meat and coffee, or meat with a little bit of honey with it, or if they decide actually I can tolerate watermelon. Watermelon's fine for me, so I'm gonna have steak and watermelon. And everyone dives on them to say, oh, it's fruit. It's like, okay, well, yeah, but maybe that again, going back to that, the right approach when it comes to weight loss diet, not dieting in terms of fat loss, but your diet, your nutritional diet approach is balance, is not balance in the sense of a balanced diet as people would call it, with fruits and vegetables and things like that. I actually disagree with that now, but balance in terms of what you can manage and sustain long term. Yeah, I right now, and probably, if I'm honest, my diet that I'm on right now is not sustainable long term, but not because I get cravings, or not because I can't eat beef every day. I've had basically nothing but beef for 105 days, and I can't wait to eat beef later. Yeah, I'm gonna really enjoy it. So from that aspect, I could stay with this forever. The reason why I say it's not sustainable is that in China, eating 6 big-ish steaks a day is affordable. If I go back to Europe or to somewhere else, it's not going to be affordable. So my diet will move more towards ground beef, kind of beef. But in terms of eating just beef, salt and butter, I don't see that changing for me almost forever. Yeah, I think that is just really, really sustainable for me. And maybe, I mean, on the butter thing, I like having a little bit of butter on top of the steak. I've not dropped it fully. I went this last week without butter, and didn't feel any better this week, because I had the digestive issues because of the eggs, I think. But for me, it's not sustainable, only for the affordability aspect. So again, and that then takes me on to another one that I see a lot of hate about on the internet, which is you post to say, guys, I've done a really good job. I'm eating carnivore. And then somebody will throw in, yeah, but is it grass fed? And it's like, okay, yeah, I understand. If it's grass fed beef, then yes, it's the ideal standard. It's got the gold emblem of optimal beef. But if somebody can't afford grass fed and they can only afford grain fed or grain finished or whatever, however it works out, grain fed, grass finished, or grass fed, grain finished, whatever, then don't judge that person. They're doing the best that they can. And that's it. And that's their balance. That's what they can sustain long term, financially, emotionally, and mental health, and also just from a, tolerance point of view. Because again, it's actually, I would call it a sin, okay, to push somebody to be stricter than they feel comfortable with, because that will then cause a rebound. Just as if you go into one of these 6 or 12-week fitness challenges where you're going to crash your food, massively elevate your exercise, most people not only gain the weight that they lost in that period, but go heavier afterwards. And the reason is that you've restricted yourself so much that psychologically you rebound, because you want to redress. Your psychology wants to redress that. And it's the same with this. If you try to be too strict and psychologically you can't do it, you're gonna turn around and say, oh, do you know what? yesterday was a bad day. I ate, I went to the shop and I bought a load of fruit and I ate more fruit than I could possibly, handle. And now I feel crappy. That's not what anybody wants. So just let people have their balance. And maybe the other thing is some people need to ease into it. I got really lucky. I just overnight dropped to beef, butter, and salt kind of thing with coffee and have had no cravings, didn't have the keto flu, didn't get any digestive, like mega diarrhea type stuff. Sorry for the info sort of thing, but I didn't get any of that. I was really, really lucky. And I know some people do, or a lot of people do. So if somebody's going to ease into it and say, okay, what I'll do is I'll start off by just eating whole foods or minimally processed foods. Then from there, I'll drop vegetables and keep fruit, or drop fruit and keep vegetables. And then from there, I'll look to drop the final vegetables and go meat based with eggs and dairy. And that's where they say, okay, this is my level. Then great. They're going to be so much better than they were before, right?
I'm loving this conversation, man, because we're going places that I think so many of us think about, but I never really bring it up on the podcast because I just feel like it's it's sort of like meta, talking about how we act in the community when we usually try to focus on the diet itself and helping people heal. But this is when we're operating in the social media space, it is important to talk about these things because we're all working in it together. We're trying to heal the most people and help the most people out. So how do we do that best in this social sphere? And one of the points that you brought up, just talking about like the carnivore dogma, like how people get mean when someone goes off the diet and adds fruit or honey or something back in. And I can sort of take the bad guy side on that one because I've been there. It does annoy me when I see someone like start posting about that and they don't really give it the full context of um, what I believe is them just caving into sugar cravings a lot of the time, or they didn't get
Yeah,
through the keto flu phase. I was following someone who I know that she posted she was going to start carnivore. She did it for like a week and a half and said, "Oh, it just didn't work for me, and I'm going back to eating tons of fruit." And I
yeah,
just know that it's because you're oxalate dumping, and
yeah,
there's a keto flu phase, and she's doing her best, but she has a lot of followers, and a lot of people are then imprinted with this signal that, oh, carnivore didn't work for this person. No, that's not true. It's because they didn't push through, the detoxifying
the
stage. And so,
adaptation
in
phase,
my mind,
basically. Yeah,
that is robbing all of those followers from the correct information that they could have had. So, some people think I'm too dogmatic or too toxic about this, but for me, I think that needs to be properly pushed back on when people aren't getting the full picture. And there's it, it gets more annoying the more followers they have. So a lot of people out there know the Carnivore Aurelius account, which
yeah,
first of all is annoying because he's very anti-carnivore, so he still has carnivore in his name. He has to know he's going to piss people off with that one. He
yeah,
posted a reel recently that essentially is saying, "Oh, bread is good for you, sourdough is good for you," which is fucking nonsense. I'm sorry. And so I went in
yeah,
there and I commented on there. I actually got the top comment, or maybe one of the top comments, basically saying, "Bro, it all just turns to glucose in your body. It's just sugar. It's not good for you." And I
yeah.
got like a couple thousand likes on that. So there are people in there that are following and realizing this guy isn't really that smart when it comes to diet. He has so
No,
many other things he's good at, and he's a really good marketer. I would say Paul Saldino is in a similar boat, but like this is the social sphere. I do believe there should be, this should be a bit of a firestorm of people trying to figure out the truth. So I don't think that it's a bad thing to come out guns blazing every once in a while. And for reference, I love Bart K. So that should
yeah,
say something about where I'm at on like the toxic spectrum. Some
yeah,
people really like that sort of just real hard ass, like facts only, everything else bullshit. I like that kind of information because I want people to just give it to me straight and just
yeah,
know what the truth is and defend it with all my heart. Some people, want people who are a little more on the soft side and more forgiving. And I mean, even within like the carnivore, you know, Mount Rushmore of, the Sean Baker, Ken Berry, Dr. Chafee, Like
Yeah.
even between Sean Baker and Dr. Chafee, for example, there's a big difference in how they present their info. And when I was
Yeah.
building my website, whycarnivore.com, I listened to every single episode of both of their podcasts. So I got a really good idea of how they present the information. And a lot of people don't know this, but Sean Baker is like very sort of flexible and chill in the way that he presents his info.
He's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, he's very much with Sean. He's unassuming. He's modest considering his background and his caliber and pedigree of, let's say, level of authority that he should be able to speak with on things. He's very, very modest, and he's even said. I seem to think that he's even said, he'll have maybe once or twice a year at a birthday party a slice of cake, and that's it. So he's not super duper strict with it, and he's not. Sorry, not that he's super strict. He is strict in terms of what he eats day to day, but he allows some flexibility, and he allows a level of his tone is, in my opinion, his tone is this is what I think is good, and this is what I recommend for my patients. If you choose to do it, that's great.
Exactly.
With Dr. Chafee,
Exactly.
he's a little bit more hard. He's very much, no, this is optimal, and if you deviate from optimal, you will not be optimal, but you can do whatever you want. I'm telling you this is what you should be doing, type thing. But he's
Beautifully said.
even Dr.
Yes, exactly.
Even Dr. Chafee is still softer than many. Yeah, and in the
I
context that
would
you
put
just
Bart
gave,
K at the very other end of the spectrum. I mean, he's
yes,
literally making videos saying this guy's a fucking idiot. Like, and
yeah,
for every person, they have a different sort of style that resonates with them the most. And you put it so well. I mean, the way that Sean Baker presents it is, this is what works for me. See what works for you. And he doesn't even really say, like carnivore is the best, which I was a little bit surprised listening to him because he everyone thinks of him as that guy that's really like defending this. But I think the reason why the vegans come after him so much and people think that he's this toxic crazy carnivore is just because he was the first one that broke the door down by
well,
going on Joe
he's the
Rogan.
guy who wrote the book. Yeah, he went on Joe
Yeah.
Rogan, and he's the
Yeah.
guy who wrote the book. Yeah,
Hmm.
aside from
But
Paul
for
Saladino,
people
sort of
that
thing as well.
yeah, but for people who want a little bit of a softer entry, Sean Baker and Ken Berry too. Ken Berry's got that southern charm. He's like your doctor. And
Yeah,
like you said, Chafee is a little bit harder around the edges. He gives it to you straight. Like carnivore is the best, and like you said, if you have less than optimal food outside of carnivore, you're going to be less optimal. And so for me personally, he was my guy. I like that straight messaging with a hard edge where there's no bullshit, floating around the edges and no like questions to ask about it. And for me, that's what I really needed to kind of get that last puzzle piece in of like, oh, look, like this actually is the best. So I'm going to try it.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
really appreciate people that push that a little bit and don't care if they get some hate for it. And so I try to do that myself a little bit. I definitely ruffle some feathers out there and to each their own. Like this is the beauty of social media is everyone can find who they resonate with the best and we're all just trying to get healthy together. So this is the beauty of it.
Exactly. And I would, going back to your example that you gave, I don't have an issue, and I agree with challenging certain things. So, in the example that you gave of a social media influencer with many, many followers who says, I'm going to test out carnivore, and then after a week says, oh, it didn't work, or this is terrible, it's an awful diet, so I'm going back to if it fits your macros, or I'm going back to food based or whole food diet. I agree there that could have a knock on negative impact that's not quite disingenuous, but not proportionate to the effort that was put in. So there, saying to that person, look, a week's not going to change much. You got into the state that you're in over many years. It's going to take, in some cases, many months possibly to correct. So you didn't give it a fair shot. But maybe another example might be if you look at somebody, I can name a couple of people like Carnivore Ray, or that other guy who's in the UK. I think he's called Carnivore Coach Cam. I think he's called. He's a British guy who always does like, here's my carnivore pizza recipe and this sort of stuff. And recently he's talked about adding some fruits back in pre-workout. Now, instantly people will dive on him and say, see, I knew you were full of shit. You're full of shit. You said you've been saying that carnivore is the way to go and this is optimal eating for so long. And that, in my opinion, that's not the way to challenge someone. Yeah. Challenge is to just say to them, you're full of shit, or say, the vegans are right. Well, no, maybe, I mean, I think in Carnivore Ray's case, he's sort of pitching his recent delving into vegetables and fruits to be an experiment that he's going to do, and he probably won't keep them. He's going to go back to being full carnivore. And for the other guys that then say, look, I was carnivore for a full year or 2 years, and now I would like to add fruit. Okay, maybe just psychologically they would prefer to do that, and that's okay. They should not pitch then, in my opinion, as you said, that is optimal. Yeah, they should just say, look, I'm not recommending everyone should do this, but for me, 95% carnivore with a 5% flexibility fits me. And if it's pitched that way,
yeah, it's the framing. It's the way that it's
be.
framed.
Exactly.
Because there's certain people that they add in, some of that sugar and carbs, and they shift their framing to say, oh, this is optimal now, just to sort of make themselves feel better for caving into their addiction. And that's when it really gets annoying, and when I speak up. But your great example is Sean Baker saying, like, he'll have a birthday cake, every several months or once or twice a year for his kid's birthday. The way that he frames it is, this obviously isn't good for me, but I'm making a sacrifice for a little bit of mouth pleasure for the experience. That is completely okay, in my opinion. Like, and that's the way that I really frame it in my head, is that whenever you go off the diet, you are partaking in mouth pleasure for a quick dopamine hit. It's, it's ticking down your total health rating for that moment. But if you want to do it, then that's totally fine. And no one's going to come after you if, well, maybe I shouldn't say no one, but I don't think anyone should come after you if you are making those personal choices and you're just clear that you're saying, hey, I cheated today. I might, just come clean that you're cheating a little bit from the optimal. Because if your audience knows that your brand is that, you're a health person, and this is where it gets annoying too, is that these people really frame themselves as like health influencers on the internet. So when they're doing things that are unhealthy for personal pleasure and like sharing all about it and not clearly saying, I'm cheating today, that's where I have an issue, because they're just confusing the message. I think that this idea of having a clear North Star message for people to follow, or at least an anchor point for what people know is the best. Like I said, I feel like I've repeated this a few times, but this is, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, so I'm kind of getting it all out now.
You're passionate about it,
yeah, because this is why I'm on social media and why I started a podcast, because I want to help clarify the message or just clarify what the truth is, I guess. And there are many different areas that I sort of dabble in. Another one's Bitcoin. Before I was ever into carnivore, I was really into Bitcoin. And so I'm the exact same level of toxicity, saying you shouldn't be getting like Ethereum and Cardano and Tezos and all these altcoins are garbage. Just stay away from them. And so I defend Bitcoin hard. And then carnivore comes in, and I see the exact same pattern of how there's all these, sort of floating around the second best land of people just like getting stuck there when like five yards away from the goal line. And it's this bizarre phenomenon where there's always like a strong cohort of people that just post up there and just die on that hill of like, no, I'm still going to have a little bit of poison in my diet.
I mean,
so it is a little just annoying. It's frustrating. It's like, why can't you just finish going all the way? And then at least people will know what the truth is at this point. But there's still, people will just hold on to that confusion until they die.
I know they do. And on the Sean Baker topic, It's quite similar to a conversation that I had with a colleague this week about this. And the way that I now view my situation is, and the way that I described it to him was that I I know that if I deviate from this elimination diet, that I will have symptoms. Maybe it might last a few days, maybe it might last longer than that, or if I'm lucky, just a day. And what I said to him was the way that I should think about this moving forward is like drinking alcohol. Yeah. Everyone knows that if you go out on a night out, and I mean, in the past for me, if I went out on a night out and I had 2 or 3 beers, I'm fine. It's no problem. No problem at all. If I have 10, I'm going to suffer the next day. So it's my choice on the day. Do I go out and get really drunk and have 10 beers, or do I control myself and not have the aftermath pain? And I think that that's the way that I will look at this moving forward. So, for example, if it's my daughter's, I mean, luckily I've got a few years yet, but if it's my daughter's 16th birthday and she wants to go to a restaurant that doesn't sell steak and only sells Indian curry or Chinese, or she's got a super special birthday cake. It's her 16th birthday. If I'm going to eat something, like that, I'll probably have the hangover to come, but it's my choice. Yeah. And it's always that balance or that trade-off decision that you make. So if I go out for dinner with colleagues, am I prepared to have a multiple day hangover for the sake of social niceties, or am I going to sit there and say sorry? Or if you can get me a steak that's cooked on the grill with nothing else, great. Otherwise, I'll just sit and have sparkling water while we all chat and socialize. I'd rather do the sparkling water and the socialize because it's not worth the hangover. Yeah, the cost is not worth the benefit, and that's what people should address it as. And if they say, oh, as you say, I cheated, I decided we were going to have a Domino's pizza and I decided I'm going to have a Domino's, okay, just pitch it as that. It's Friday night or Saturday night, we had a pizza, it's a bad choice, and I suffered for it for the next few days. God, it's going to be months or even a year before I do that again. And if they give it that qualifier, then I think that everybody then is at least informed of the right thing, yeah? And the other way that I
100%.
also
Yeah.
think about it, when people say, so that's one way of describing it, and most people will accept that. But then even for the people that don't accept that, they might say, yeah, but it's only like, could you not have some chips, or could you not have something or other? It's only a little bit. It's only a little bit. The actual
Live a
way that I
little.
think about it,
Life
the
is
only way that
short.
no, well, yeah, it is. But the way that I think about it is saying, look, if I have one cigarette, I'm not going to have lung cancer tomorrow. But I've never had a cigarette in my life because they're not healthy and they destroy your body. Yeah. So for me, oh, just one burger. Okay, well, why don't I just have a cigarette as well with it? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the way that I
And
personally think in my mind. That's the kind of, if you were looking at it from a philosophical view, that's the way that I view, so and kind of leaning towards now, along with the hangover analogy. For me, that's the way that I
yeah,
will probably live it moving forward.
absolutely. And I joke about, the live a little, life is short. This is like the most classic thing that every carnivore has to deal with if we're, in any social situations with pretty much any friends or family or coworkers, or, at a restaurant. And this is where the social side comes in. And you talked about this as well, how, being in China, I would say pretty much anywhere, it's difficult. It's a chore. And it's a social awkwardness to ask, hey, can you please just not put any poison on this thing that I want to eat? And I
Yeah,
was in Colombia for about 6 months out of the last year, and I've had to learn all these complicated Spanish words to tell them, like no, no aceite, por favor, like just grill it. And
yeah,
even when you do everything right, it still doesn't work. And this is where the big picture of trying to uh, we're part of the bigger movement here of moving the whole world in this direction of healthier food. And this is where all those things are going to get easier. Like there are multiple fronts to this battle. There is the personal battle of eating the correct food. There's the bigger picture battle of shifting the whole narrative and the whole dietary zeitgeist, I suppose, of getting these restaurants and just the food supply in general to stop thinking it's normal to just include poison with everything. And like every meat dish has to have plants around it, has to be cooked in oil, and these social situations will become easier. And I'm seeing uh,
Yeah.
hope out there. Even just in the last year, so every time I go to a restaurant, which isn't super often, but I do still keep tabs on it. I will just usually get a stack of hamburger patties if they have burgers, and that's easy. The place I went to with my family, I think it was like a week ago. I always ask this now. I asked the waitress, is it common for people to ask for this? Like, have you heard anyone else ask for just meat? And she was like, yeah, it's becoming a lot more common. A lot of people are doing it. And
Brilliant.
so this is really it's starting to make a dent. And I asked her because when I asked for a stack of patties, I'm pretty used to them just saying, what? But she was like, oh, okay, sure. So it's becoming more normalized that people are having just meat. And at the same time, there's a lot of flack coming out around seed oils. That's really become a big story of how bad these uh, hydrogenated oils are for humans. That's entering the mainstream now. We have
Yes.
wherever people stand politically, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been beating the drum on that. He just posted a tweet about seed oils, citing Nina Teicholz in the Big Fat Surprise a couple of days ago, and he's putting it out there. And so even on the big stage of politics, where usually they never talk about anything of substance, they're talking about
Exactly.
seed oils. So that's
Yeah.
really entering the public conversation. So that's going to make it easier to not have to be awkward when you're out with friends at dinner. And as all these things get easier, it just becomes more and more of a smooth process. You have to make less of these sacrifices over time. So that's
Yes.
super exciting, a good motivation to continue using our platforms on social media to continue promoting this message, because the more noise we put out there, the more people start asking these questions and making these requests at the restaurants. The restaurant owners start to realize, this is what people actually want. We should actually change things around. All over the world it's going to start happening, and it's just an exciting thing to be a part of.
I think you're absolutely right. And you mentioned about excuse me, you mentioned about the China thing. It is difficult in China because obviously language barrier. To my shame, I don't speak Chinese, so it's totally on me there. Um, but the language barrier is an issue. But also from a cultural point of view, like I can't even trust, being honest, that if I go to uh, McDonald's here, because they do have McDonald's, there's no herbs and vegetable content element in the burger patties, here. So
Like
that's
seasonings
where,
that always just find their way in there, or some pepper even. Like, yeah, that's
yeah,
plants.
or even if they've just put like something inside the beef itself that's not 100% beef, it could be something else. They could have even added oils into the beef when they're making the patties. I don't know. Um, so that's where it will be easier to do travel and things like that when I go outside of China again. But in the meantime, I bought the dehydrator. I can make my own jerky. It's not going to be often that I'm going to be having jerky every day for 5 days like I've just done, but I'll make it work. And as you say, it is becoming more common, um, and restaurants are quite accommodating. In August, I was in Germany for a couple of days, went to a couple of restaurants and said to the guys, look, please just give me a steak, and it can't have anything on it. Just if there's salt on it, that's okay. But I even had my own salt in my pocket, some Maldon's, I think it is Malden sea salt. So I had some of that with me, and so I can just say, just give me a steak with nothing, literally nothing. And most of the waiters, even in Germany, they would say nothing, no sauce, no, but wine, no wine, really, yeah, yeah. And it turns into a kind of a joke, and it's fine. I don't mind that at all. So I think the more people that do it and the more people that normalize it, the better. I agree with you.
Yeah, and it's a global movement going on in front of our eyes. We're still at the very far left of the bell curve, so every single person that we can affect is making a difference. And this is why it's so cool that I found you through social media. That's how we connected. This is the
Yeah,
power of social media, as we get to, just spread this message much quicker than ever before. We don't have newspapers to, have to read anymore. We can get our message out to far more people, far more easily, and at the same time help ourselves learn and use it as a journal as we're marking all these things down. And it's such a powerful tool for good. And I really think that more and more people are realizing that this can be a positive thing for humanity, is having social media, because it went through, I would say, a rough spell marketing wise of, social media for a long time was just, how people just watch cat videos and played games and watch porn or whatever. And it was pretty much negative stuff. And
yeah.
people are figuring out now that this is really a way that we can help change the world in a positive way. And I'm going to throw another thing at you here, because I'm on a streak of at least 2 or 3 episodes in a row of shilling Noster. So have you seen me posting about this on Instagram before?
No, no. What is
Never
it?
heard of it. Okay, well,
No.
I'm going to give you the quick spiel. There's this new social media protocol rather than a platform called Noster, and it's
How do
this
you?
has been
Sorry, how do you
blowing my
spell that?
mind recently.
Noster. Noster. How do you spell that?
Nostr. It stands for notes and
Okay.
other things no, I'm sorry. Notes and other stuff transmitted by relays is what it stands for. And
Okay.
it's such a fascinating concept because there is no central point of failure on it. There's no CEO. There's no, Ministry of Truth or fact checkers or anything. It's completely open protocol, like email. And so there's a whole new element of freedom there where we don't have to worry about censorship, and you can really curate your content in a really sharp way. Um, I I got my buddy Lash on there. I just posted his podcast today. Erica Arntz was an artist that I had on recently. She's on there too now. And oh,
Okay.
by the way, Bitcoin is natively integrated, so you can actually get paid for your content just with a click of a button. So I would love to see you on there if you're interested, because your content is so good for that. You have a lot of visual, whether it's just a picture of your food or the infographics or the instructions and the if
Yeah.
you go in a coaching direction even, people can just pay you directly without any third party on there. So it's,
Okay.
I wake up every morning now and I just see a whole bunch of notifications of, like, you've received some Bitcoin, you've received Bitcoin, you've received Bitcoin, just for memes I posted. So anyway, throwing that in there, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
I've
It
really been
sounds
trying
it.
to bridge more carnivores to come onto that, because I think it's such a beautiful blending of, one, just being safe with your content, because people are getting censored all over the place. Like Dave Mack recently, his channel has, I think, almost 75,000 subscribers, and a bunch of vegans came in and, just attacked the channel and gave it a bunch of flags. So he got a warning from YouTube. So we need to keep this in mind, that it's going to get, I think there's going to be just more and more banning going on. So it's good to
Yes.
keep
Yeah.
your followers and your audience protected somewhere where it can't be taken away. There's no banning on Noster. It's not possible. So
That's interesting. I will.
it
I
also
will
just,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah. I'll 100% have a look at it. Definitely.
cool,
Because
man. Yeah, I have
it does sound interesting.
I forget what the episode number is, but I have a Noster 101 episode. There's also just like a Noster playlist on my YouTube where I also bring carnivore Noster people on, and they're sort of talking about how the two are so intertwined and how it's so powerful of a combo. Dr. Fernando Morales is a really cool guy I had on a while back, but before I get too off track there, that's just a cool rabbit hole I recommend for you and anyone else listening,
Yeah.
to check out if you haven't already, because it's been just, that's been a rabbit hole for me these last few weeks, especially just in the news. I'm not sure if you follow, but the Telegram CEO was arrested in France for
I
people
saw that.
using
Yeah.
that app to message
Yeah.
each other about bad things. So that's weird. Oh, and literally today, someone in, I think it was like the Brazil Supreme Court, bans X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, in all
Yeah.
of Brazil. So they're just going
Wow.
crazy, like just dropping hammers on these centralized platforms. And a big theme of our conversation today is the importance of communication and the ability
Yes.
to share your message and share your story, share your self experimentation, and use the internet as your journal. If we don't have a good communication location where that's safe, then that can rug pull the whole operation. So this is why I'm really pushing Noster out there, trying to throw it out as many times as I can. It's a very
No,
fascinating concept. Mm-hmm.
I will definitely have a look at it. Thanks for that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um,
Sweet.
One thing that you mentioned there, Ben, that I'll just quickly dive on if I can, was like you mentioned about coaching. So I get asked a lot actually, if I offer coaching and that kind of thing. I'm not a coach. Um, I don't, it's not something that I do. I've got a full-time job that I'm, more than invested in and happy with. What I tend to more do is connect with people and then end up mentally, I think of it more as mentoring kind of thing. So if people need some general guidance, or like I probably have about 4 people actually now on Instagram at this moment who are coming to me daily with like almost like they use me for accountability. So they're coming to me to say, okay, I'm on day 24. We started on day 0. How do I get started? Okay, this is what I would do. Try this. Give me more information about you, like a coach would. But then rather than being prescriptive in terms of this is what you must eat and this is how you must train, it's more of a let's find what's right for you. And then they use me to bounce ideas off. Any struggles or problems that they're having, they talk to me about. And even from a professional point of view, because I've you know I've done quite well in my career so far. And a few people come to me for that kind of stuff as well. So it's more that rather than coaching. I would just say to anybody who's listening.
Awesome.
So
Good
if that
elaboration.
saves
Mm-hmm.
if that saves somebody asking me the question, am I a coach? No, technically I'm not a coach. I don't do coaching.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you for the clarification there. And I feel like that's also just a good sort of transition. We can start closing it out here. It's been
Sure. Yeah,
sometimes
I
there's
agree.
episodes where I cannot believe it's been an hour and 20 minutes. That just flew by because we had so many things to throw around, and I love it when it happens. So,
Yeah.
just in terms of like where people can follow you, where they can, just get in touch with you and what you offer them and why they should check you out.
Yeah, so for me, if you can find me on Instagram, it's Carnivore Ali is the handle. I think it's Carnivore_Ali. Um, and initially, in terms of if they want to get in touch, send me a message on Instagram, and we can connect from there. With a couple of people, I've transitioned to then WhatsApp with them, and a couple of people email because that's their preference because of where they're located in the world, and we can go from there. In terms of what I offer, if you will, it's more my content is focused around as you say, a diary of this elimination diet experience, just giving general updates, trying to tell a few jokes and be a little bit humorous with it at the same time, and a mix of fitness and weight loss kind of motivation. Because the one thing that I think that a lot of people suffer from is that they view their weight loss need, if they are very big, or what they have to do is this insurmountable mountain that they have to climb, and it might be a huge change and a huge long journey that you need to go on, but that's okay. You've got the rest of your life to be better. Yeah. So the important thing is taking the first step tomorrow. And if you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, that's okay. It's not a problem. You will slip up. You will make mistakes. You won't be 100% perfect. But I said the same thing on another recent podcast recently. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Just because you had a bad day or didn't hit the gym that day for some reason, okay, it's not ideal if you were supposed to. But if in 2 months from now, if you missed the gym once, or you had one slice of birthday cake or something like that, is it going to kill? Is it going to break your journey? No. Are you optimal? No. But you're good enough. Yeah, everyone's good enough. Be the best that you can be better than you were tomorrow, and you're on the best path that you can be, kind of thing. So that's me.
Ali, it has
Yeah.
been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today, sir. That went in a lot of directions I wasn't expecting, that I feel like I just needed to get off my chest. So I appreciate
No,
you
I enjoyed it.
and
I really
all of your
enjoyed it, Ben.
opinions.
Thank you.
I think we have so much in common, like just the right amount of differences in some places, but we're all in this together, and it's a pleasure to be in the carnivore boat with you, pushing this good message of healing and optimization of health. And it's been excellent, sir. I look forward to keeping in touch, following your journey, and I'll see you on Noster soon. Wink, wink.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great evening. Yeah.
You as well. Talk to you
All
soon.
right. Cheers now. Bye bye.